I was scared to death. I was. I was scared for me, and I was scared for every one of them, and I was scared for my own family that just lived less than a block away.
Tonight he's being hailed a hero. The man who engaged in a shootout with the church gunman is speaking out.
Treating the victims, how doctors were able to handle the rush of people injured in the state's worst mass shooting.
Good evening. Day two into the investigation of the South Texas church shooting that left 26 people dead.
The investigation on the ground has run into at least one major challenge. Federal agents cannot get access to Devon Kelly's cell phone because it's encrypted. We also know more than 100 officers are processing other evidence at the crime scene. And today we learned that caskets have been donated for all 26 of the victims.
But we begin tonight with Rebecca Lopez live in Sutherland Springs with those new developments on the shooter. Rebecca.
Well, there are a lot of questions about how this mass murderer continued to slip through the system. He was repeatedly under investigation from everything from sexual assaults to sneaking weapons onto a military base. There were major failures that allowed this violent man to buy weapons that he ultimately used to kill more than half of a congregation. We are getting a clearer picture of the murderer behind the deadliest mass shooting in Texas history. In documents we obtained, Devon Kelly was arrested in El Paso in June of 2012 after he escaped from a mental institution in Sunland Park, New Mexico. The documents show that Sunland Park police told El Paso PD Kelly suffered from mental disorders and had plans to run from the mental hospital and take a bus out of state. But perhaps even more troubling is the documents state Kelly was a danger to himself and others as he had already been caught sneaking firearms onto Holloman Air Force Base and was attempting to carry out death threats that he made on his military chain of command. At the time, Kelly was facing a court-martial for assaulting his wife and child while at Holloman Air Force Base. Yet none of this was reported as required by federal law to the FBI, which would have prohibited Kelly from buying weapons, including the weapon that authorities say he used to kill more than 24 people at First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs.
There was nothing in our databases that precluded him from purchasing a firearm.
The families of the victims want answers as to why the Air Force did not report his criminal history to the FBI to put in their national database. A source told News 8 that the military is notorious for not reporting criminal history to the FBI. In addition to all of that, Kelly was also under investigation by the Comal County Sheriff's Office in June 2013 for reported sexual assault, but the case was stalled and nothing more was done.
We're still researching it. We think that it was partly because maybe the suspect had moved to Colorado.
So again, he slipped through the system. Authorities also say Kelly had recently sent threatening messages to his in-laws. A family friend told us he felt his in-laws were too controlling and was feuding with him. He reportedly went to the church to find them and kill everyone inside. That family friend also told us that Kelly's in-laws were concerned and they were worried about him and they were fearful of him, but they said that recently they had some hope because last Tuesday he took his children to the church's fall.
Thank you, Rebecca Lopez, reporting live for us from Sutherland Springs. Now, the man who shot Devon Kelly is also speaking out tonight. His name is Stephen Williford. He was at home at the time of the shooting Sunday morning, so he says he grabbed his AR-15 and ran barefoot to the church.
I'm no hero. I am not. I think my God, my Lord, protected me and gave me the skills to do what needed to be done. And I just wish I could have gotten there faster, but I didn't know. I didn't know what was happening.
Now, Williford hid behind a pickup truck and exchanged gunfire with Devon Kelly. Williford is a former National Rifle Association instructor.
Families are mourning those killed and watching closely over those who are fighting for their lives, including a 5-year-old boy who was shot several times. Family and friends are taking turns sitting at the bedsides of 10 people who are still in critical condition. Eyewitness News reporter Jeremy Baker joins us live from Sutherland Springs. Jeremy?
Yeah, Sutherland Springs is a small town of about 600 people. Many of those that don't live here have been stopping by to pay their respects and to let the survivors know that the state, the country, and the world has them on their minds.
You think about a 5-year-old getting shot 5 times with an assault rifle, you don't think they're going to come out of it. An adult doesn't come out of it.
That's the uncle of 5-year-old Ryland Ward, who says the young boy is fighting for his life at University Hospital. He was shot 5 times and lost his 2 sisters and stepmom in the shooting. Carol Horton says her mother, Farida Brown, was shot 5 times in the legs by the shooter, but survived after crawling under a pew and playing dead. And she's thankful she's still here.
I get to say my mom survived. I get to say my mother's alive. I get to see her again.
This makeshift memorial has started to take shape just a block away from the church, with flowers, teddy bears, and personalized notes left for the victims. Norma and Kelani came from San Antonio to pay their respects.
This town suffered a great tragedy, and it just shows Texas comes together and Texas really has each other's back.
They thought adding candles to the memorial would be the perfect gesture of kindness.
We decided to place a candle of the Virgin Mary because she symbolizes protection over her children.
Now, Community Bible Church will be holding a citywide prayer service in San Antonio tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Live from Sutherland Springs, Jeremy Baker, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. Well, the effects of this tragedy are being felt by everyone in the community, including seasoned law enforcement.
Justice of the Peace in Guadalupe County had to identify the shooter. It's the job he's done many times before, but as he tells KENS 5 Anastasia Bolton, this time it was different.
This job.
My background is 19 years of law enforcement before I became a judge.
His job in Guadalupe County, Texas, is to identify people who have passed.
And I've done numerous inquests.
And Justice of the Peace Judge Todd Friesenhahn has done this job many times before.
But this one here was always on top of your mind of what happened.
And of all those who died, he only had to identify one man.
You hear about the other mass shootings around the country, but when it's in your backyard, it gets kind of surreal.
But the reality of what his job meant on this day was setting in.
And, you know, I'm trying not to get sentimental here, but it gets really close to home.
He's thankful he didn't go to the church. He went to the killer's car crash.
And the numbers just kept growing and growing. And as I was driving, my phone was going off, and you know, okay, it went up more and more kind of deal. And back to your thoughts of, wow, is this really happening?
Many in the small community are still asking that today, a question that will never be answered.
It's just a senseless act.
Anastasia Bolton, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.
Judge Friesenhahn tells us he didn't know the shooter, but part of him wishes he did. He says maybe he could have helped. He told us he called his mom on the way back from the scene and told her he loved her and hugged his wife when he got home.